We have an update for you on the CNN situation. They are now admitting that their segment, at least in part, was a complete lie that we showed all of you on Thursday, where you had this miraculous freeing of a prisoner who had allegedly been in the cell for months on end. And even though he'd been there for months, and there was no waste in the cell, and his nails were perfectly manicured, and he actually looked fine, and he wasn't pale or didn't show signs of acute malnutrition or of hunger or of lacking water for several days. Well, it just turns out that at the very least, the name that he gave them is totally wrong. Let's put this up there on the screen. According to CNN themselves, they tracked down some of the people who knew him, and they say a man who was filmed by CNN, note the passive language, being released by rebels from a Damascus jail was a former intelligence officer with the deposed Syrian regime, according to local residents, not an ordinary citizen who had been imprisoned as he had claimed. CNN initially found the man while pursuing leads. In a video report, Clarissa Ward and her team, accompanied by a rebel guard, came across a cell in Damascus that was padlocked. The guard blew off the lock, and the man was found alone inside the cell. When he emerged, he appeared bewildered. Questioned by the rebel fighter who freed him, he identified himself as Adel Gurbal from the central Syrian city of Homs. He claimed he'd been kept in the cell for 3 months. However, his real identity is said to be a lieutenant in the Assad regime Air Force Intelligence Directorate, Salama Mohammed Salama, a resident of Bayada neighborhood in Homs, gave CNN a photograph said to be of the same man while he was on duty in what appears to be a government office. Facial recognition then matched him to that role, and it appears that he was actually in prison as of a month ago because he had been extorting and shaking people down for, quote, profit sharing from extorted funds with a higher ranking officer. So, okay, at the very least, his story is bullshit, right? 3 months in jail. Nope, he was in prison less than a month ago. They said he was some, heartbroken rebel prisoner. No, it turns out he was an Assad intelligence thug who at least had been in prison for shaking people down, maybe, right, according to them. And then his current whereabouts completely unknown. So this raises all kinds of questions, and it's a total joke and terrible look for CNN because they just broadcast this stuff without they don't check anything, they don't ask anything, they broadcast it live. Everybody's reacting to it. Krystal, I'm sure you saw, this is one of the most extraordinary moments in American television that I've ever seen.
I did see it.
Normal people are like, this is a bullshit, okay? I didn't come out and say it 100% because you never know, Ryan and I, but we were like, well, it looks fake.
You guys are very diplomatic. I watched your section,
right.
They're very diplomatic.
Like, well,
you gotta leave a possibility open.
Internally, I was just like, yeah.
Well, just for people who didn't see your original segment and maybe haven't seen this original CNN segment, let's relive and just in your mind, like imagine if you were, the story they're selling here is that this man has been in prison for at least 3 months, that he's gone days and days without water. I mean, you can only go a short period of time before you die without water, and that he's been hiding under this blanket the whole time, yet he's like, his haircut looks pretty fresh. The jacket he's wearing is really clean. Like, there's still a lot of questions. So let's go ahead and relive this CNN segment, and then I can tell you a little bit more about what we know on the other side.
I'm a civilian, he says. I'm a civilian. Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. My. Okay, it's water. It's water. After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky.
So, it went on from there, but
he sees the sky.
And there's a whole emotional scene, etc. In any case, let's go and put up on the screen. CNN was not the outlet that first tracked down who this individual actually was. It was this organization, which calls itself like a Syrian fact checker. The headline here, updated to CNN, fabricate the story of, quote, freeing a Syrian detainee from a secret prison. They are the ones who tracked down the actual identity of this individual and talked to local residents and got the story from them. And according to local residents, he was imprisoned, as you said, Saagar, less than a month. It was due to a dispute over profit sharing from extorted funds with a higher ranking officer. So it was the Assad government itself who had imprisoned their own guy, right? And then he also was known, allegedly, again, according to local residents, as someone who had murdered and tortured civilians. So not exactly the like heartwarming tale that CNN wants you to take away from their original reporting. But the other thing is, like, so many questions still remain. Because even now that we know the apparent identity of this man and the reason that he was apparently imprisoned, the whole setup still seems really fake. You know, the whole idea that he was in prison for so long, they had no food and water, that they just stumbled upon him and miraculously rescued him, et cetera, et cetera. It raises a lot of questions. And it's also just incredible. You know, Clarissa Ward, she's a longtime foreign correspondent. Like, she's been in war zones. This is not someone who is just naively showing up. Certainly, she's been in a lot of dicey situations with a lot of people who want to propagandize you and, you know, convince you and trick you, et cetera. So the fact that this was just accepted at face value is really quite wild to me.
Oh, absolutely. She should know better than anybody else. But Ryan was bringing this up, and I think it's actually the most important. These journalists, they're not neutral people. As in, Clarissa Ward admitted to sending an email to Ben Rhodes, who was the national security deputy under Barack Obama, and was like, I hope that you're happy with yourself, because she was upset with him for not bombing the Assad regime in 2013. She admitted on the stage to all of this. She literally said on this issue, I'm an activist. And so what happens? We all get carried away. You know, I'm particularly aggravated by this entire situation, because you would think that these Al-Qaeda guys are the greatest heroes on earth. And listen, I'm fine with value neutral analysis. I'm openly was fine, not fine, but I said, well, it's preferable to leave Afghanistan and let the Taliban take over. I know the Taliban is bad. I know a lot of people will suffer. I just don't think we should have anything to do with it. But you basically have two regimes who are now effectively the same. Look at the media treatment of the way that the US pullout from Afghanistan was happening, and look at these people. They're like heroes, you know? And, you know, let's check in 5-6 years from now. Let's see how it works out for the Alawite Christians or for the Druze population, or the Shia, or any of these other religious minorities. Let's see, you know, everybody said, oh, Afghanistan's gonna be a harbor of terrorism and all this stuff. Why don't they say the same stuff about Syria? Like, somehow they have decided that Assad was worse. And look, he's not a good guy, but you don't have a lot of good options to choose from here.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just infuriated by people like her and all these other Western journalists who selectively decide like who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. And it doesn't even make any sense. Its internal logic is completely contradictory. It's totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I think when we had Jeremy Scahill on, I think he said it well, which is that, of course, there are very good reasons why many Syrians are celebrating these developments, and that means something. And you know, I'm not Syrian, and like they deserve to get a chance to run their own country and to have a representative government and to shape their own destiny. And at the same time, while you're holding that thought in your head, you also have to recognize that the peril is great. Based on who we know the new government is comprised of their track record, and also what we've learned through the Arab Spring, what we learned through our intervention, our disastrous intervention in Libya, and other brutal, catastrophic misadventures. So, you know, I hope that the story turns out differently this time, but I'm jaded enough to be not too optimistic about that.
As you should be. And also, you know, for everybody, oh, let the Syrians decide. We decided to be that's different a long time ago. Syrians didn't get to play a role in any of this. Qatar, UAE, the United States, Iran, Hezbollah, Israel, dare I say.
Turkey.
Turkey. I could go on forever. It's turned into a complete regional proxy. It's like Ukraine. They themselves, they never had a chance to determine their own future. From day one, it became a foreign playground. And they're, of course, the ones who paid with it with their lives. So I feel terrible for them. But now at this point, I mean, yeah, I literally am looking at a thing right now, a pre-recorded video from the new leader of Syria, al-Jilani. When we build the Islamic Caliphate, Christians will pay the jizya under Islamic Sharia. Okay? If you don't know what that is, it's a tax. So that's what ISIS did too, by the way, whenever they imprisoned sex slaves in Syria. This is what I'm talking about. And these people act like they're heroes. Yes, like, has he changed his tune? I hope so, you know, for the people of Syria, but you can't preemptively be giving these people the benefit of the doubt. So I don't know. I just think willful tools of propaganda are ridiculous. They did this with Egypt. They did this with Libya. They're doing it now with Syria. The track record is bad. So yes, I'm hopeful for the people of Syria. I actually wish for them they actually got to decide their own fate. But let's not be naive. Let's not be naive about this conflict.
That's exactly right.
14 years now this has been going on.
I think in this situation with this CNN report, I mean, the simplest and most obvious explanation is Clarissa Ward, who should know better because she is an experienced reporter, has been to many war zones, has been in these sorts of situations, that she allowed her ideology to blind her to the fact that she was being taken for a ride.
Exactly.
Like, I actually think that's the most charitable explanation of what unfolded here.
Let's hope that that's the case.
But then you also have to think, you know, it's not just her, because she records this, and then there's a chain of producers who edit it, and executive producers who okay it, and, you know, on-air hosts, I believe it was presented originally with Anderson Cooper, who accept it as credible when, I mean, the vast majority of people, when they saw this, immediately were like, this is bullshit.
Yeah.
So somehow it got through all of those chains and made it to air without any major, like, caveats of, we don't really know what unfolded here, but we're gonna show you the story. Okay, that's one thing. Like, but it was presented as if they felt confident that the story they were being fed was the real and accurate truth. So.
Yeah, and last thing on this, there's often a feeling in the US that, oh, I can't believe how bad things have gotten. No. It's always been this way. As in this 10, 15 years ago, this Clarissa Ward segment, there's no internet, all right? Like, there's no Twitter or anything for this. People like, this is BS. And I was reminded, actually, of the Dan Rather incident. Do you remember this? Where he was fired from CBS News after they were found manufacturing a story. And if you think about it, like, that was right at the beginning of the blogosphere.
Was that about George W. Bush?
This was about Bush, and yeah, exactly.
His National Guard service or whatever, it was that. Yeah, I do.
My point, though, is that Dan Rather was a household name in this country, right? He was like Walter Cronkite 2.0 and all of this. And it took the blogosphere to be like, hey, this is BS. Now, rewind to Vietnam. So all of the people who have all this nostalgic feeling, I have this Cronkite book behind me, all right? People should go and read it, because the news has always been fake. It's just that now you know it's fake. And we have this theory about, oh, things have gotten worse. It's like, no. For the very first time, you actually have and can see behind the curtain.
Well, Brian Williams, remember?
Oh, yeah.
About, like,
ducking in a
about
helicopter.
coming under fire while he was in a military helicopter in Iraq or something like that. And it took years for that to ultimately emerge, that he just completely made that up. And I think there were several other instances of, we'll call it fabulism.
Of course.
From him.
There's so many of them.
That led to his downfall, although he was resurrected, brought back into NBC, but that's a whole other story.
They put him at 11 p.m. But yeah, that's the other thing, is that you lie, oh, it's fine, no worries. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, because I see way too many people thinking, how could CNN ever be like this? And it's like, well, let's rewind to 2003 in the Iraq War. How many of these things were you guys seeing out there of like, oh, we've been welcomed as liberators and all of that? We just didn't have Twitter to be like, this is bullshit, for people in Iraq to be like, no, actually, this is entirely staged by the Pentagon.
And a whole ecosystem of independent journalists like this Syrian group that are able to actually track it down. Yeah.
Glenn is the OG of this. He was the first person on the blogosphere with others talking about how the anthrax story was fake, Iraq was fake, but he was a lone wolf, at that time. So God bless Glenn. Shout out to him, man, because he set the stage for all of us. But anyway, it's just a reminder. It's like all this nostalgia about things were in the past. You just didn't know. This was half the stuff that was coming out.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.